What if the only thing standing between you and the life you want is confidence? Not luck, not talent, confidence. The kind that doesn't collapse when people doubt you. The kind that doesn't disappear after failure. Unshakable confidence is the invisible force behind every success story you admire. And the good news, it's not something you're born with. It's something you build. In this video, I'll show you how to develop real, unbreakable confidence and use it to win in life step by step. Watch until the end because the final lesson changes everything. Lesson 1. Understand what confidence really is. Confidence is one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern psychology, often mistaken for a loud personality, a lack of insecurity, or a natural-born charisma that some possess and others do not. However, at its most fundamental level, confidence is simply the quiet internal conviction that you can navigate whatever life throws your way. It is not the absence of fear, but rather the decision that something else is more important than that fear. When we look at the most successful or seemingly fearless people in the world, we aren't looking at people who are immune to doubt. We are looking at people who have mastered the art of coexisting with it. They understand that confidence isn't a shield that protects you from the storm, but an anchor that keeps you steady while the storm rages. A crucial distinction to make is the difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is a defensive mechanism, a loud and fragile mask worn to hide deep-seated insecurities and a desperate need for external validation. It requires looking down on others to feel high. True confidence, conversely, is silent and secure. It doesn't need to prove itself to the room because it is rooted in self-trust rather than social comparison. When you are truly confident, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be comfortable with the fact that you can learn from those who are. This shift in perspective is liberating because it removes the exhausting burden of pretending to be perfect. We must also dismantle the myth that confidence is a fixed personality trait, like eye color or height. Many people resign themselves to a life of hesitation because they believe they simply weren't born with the confidence gene. This is a fallacy. Confidence is a muscle, and like any muscle, it undergoes atrophy when neglected and grows stronger when intentionally exercised. It is a neuroplastic skill that is developed through repeated exposure to discomfort. Every time you step into a situation that makes your heart race and you choose to stay present, you are literally rewiring your brain to recognize that you are capable of handling stress. This realization puts the power back in your hands. You are not stuck with the level of confidence you have today. Furthermore, understanding confidence requires acknowledging the role of self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to succeed in specific situations. This isn't about knowing you will win every time. It's about trusting your capacity to figure out the solution as you go. Life is unpredictable and no amount of preparation can account for every variable. Therefore, the ultimate form of confidence is being okay with not knowing the outcome. It is the transition from, "I hope they like me," to, "I'll be fine if they don't." This detachment from specific external results allows you to act with a level of freedom and authenticity that is impossible to achieve when you are paralyzed by the need for a guaranteed win. Ultimately, when you redefine confidence as a relationship with yourself rather than a performance for others, the world opens up. You stop waiting for a magical day when you'll suddenly feel ready and start recognizing that the feeling of being unready is actually the prerequisite for growth. The discomfort you feel is not a signal to stop. It is the sensation of your comfort zone expanding. By embracing this internal definition, you move away from the fragile, ego-driven version of confidence that depends on praise and move toward a resilient, soul-driven version that depends only on your willingness to show up. Lesson 2. Keep promises to yourself. The foundation of all self-confidence is a concept known as reputational capital. But it's not the reputation you have with the world. It's the reputation you have with yourself. Every time you make a promise to yourself and fail to keep it, you are essentially telling your subconscious mind that your word is worthless. If you tell yourself you'll wake up at 6 a.m. and you hit snooze 4 times, you start the day with a trust deficit. You have signaled to your brain that you are not a reliable person. Over years of these small betrayals, your self-esteem erodes because you fundamentally do not trust the person staring back at you in the mirror. You cannot feel confident if you don't believe your own intentions. To rebuild this broken trust, you must treat your promises to yourself with the same, if not more, sanctity than you treat your promises to your boss, your partner, or your friends. We often bend over backward to ensure we don't let others down, yet we treat our own goals as optional. This creates a hierarchy where everyone else's needs are prioritized over our own integrity. To reverse this, you must start making small, manageable commitments and fulfilling them with obsessive consistency. It isn't about the scale of the task, it's about the completion of it. If you say you're going to drink 1 glass of water before coffee, do it. If you say you're going to walk for 10 minutes, do it. These small wins are the bricks that build the fortress of self-belief. There is a psychological phenomenon where our brains monitor our behavior to determine our identity. If I see myself constantly completing tasks, I begin to identify as a person who gets things done. This identity then drives future behavior, creating a positive feedback loop. This is why keeping promises is unstoppable. It changes your self-identity at the root level. You stop trying to act confident and start being confident because your history of actions proves that you are a person of integrity. You no longer need to psych yourself up before a challenge because you have a mountain of evidence that you do what you say you're going to do. However, life is messy, and there will be days when you fall short. The key to maintaining this foundation is not perfection, but immediate course correction. If you break a promise to yourself, don't spiral into a week of self-sabotage. Acknowledge the slip, analyze why it happened, and make a new, smaller promise immediately to get back on track. Confidence doesn't require a perfect record, it requires a commitment to the process of integrity. It's the difference between a person who misses one workout and goes the next day versus the person who misses one and decides they are a failure who should give up entirely. The former maintains their self-trust, the latter destroys it. As you accumulate these kept promises, a profound shift occurs in your presence. You move through the world with a different energy because you aren't hiding from your own hypocrisy. You can look people in the eye, speak with conviction, and take risks because you know that even if the external world fails you, you won't fail yourself. This internal reliability is the only true security we have in an uncertain world. It is the unstoppable force mentioned in the section, a deep, unshakable knowledge that you are your own most reliable ally. When you have your own back, the opinions and obstacles of the world lose their ability to derail you. Lesson 3. Reframe failure as training. Our society has conditioned us to view failure as a terminal state, a final verdict on our worth or potential. We see a failed business, a failed relationship, or a failed exam as a stain on our character. But this perspective is the greatest enemy of confidence. To the truly confident, failure is not an ending. It is data. It is the laboratory of the soul where we test hypotheses about how the world works. If you conduct an experiment and it doesn't yield the result you expected, you haven't failed. You've simply discovered one way that doesn't work. This is the scientific method applied to personal growth, and it is the only way to achieve mastery in any field. When you reframe failure as training, you strip away the emotional sting that usually leads to hesitation. Fear of failure is usually fear of the shame we associate with it. If you remove the shame and replace it with curiosity, the fear vanishes. Imagine a professional athlete reviewing game film of a loss. They aren't watching it to beat themselves up. They are watching it to see where their footwork was off or where they misread the opponent's strategy. They are studying the failure to extract the training. you must adopt this same clinical, growth-oriented mindset. Every time something doesn't go your way, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me that I can't learn any other way? This mindset shift also changes your relationship with discomfort. Instead of avoiding difficult tasks where you might fail, you begin to seek them out because you realize that the most valuable training happens at the edge of your current abilities. A life spent avoiding failure is a life spent in stagnation. Confidence grows in the arena, not in the stands. The person who has failed 100 times and gotten back up is infinitely more confident than the person who has never failed because they've never tried. The former knows they can survive the fall. The latter is still terrified of the height. Your resilience is forged in the fires of your setbacks. Moreover, failure serves as a powerful filter. It filters out the methods, people, and paths that are not aligned with your ultimate goals. Sometimes, a failure is actually a redirection toward a better opportunity that you weren't yet ready to see. By embracing this, you stop viewing life as a series of obstacles and start viewing it as a series of lessons. This removes the threat from your environment. When nothing is a threat, your nervous system remains calm, your mind stays sharp, and your confidence remains intact. You become someone who is anti-fragile, a person who actually gets stronger and better as a result of stress and volatility. Finally, we must recognize that the most successful people in history are often the ones who have failed the most. Their confidence didn't come from a string of unbroken victories. It came from the realization that failure couldn't break them. Once you realize that a no from a client, a rejection letter, or a public mistake doesn't actually kill you, you become dangerous in the best way possible. You become willing to take the swings that others are too afraid to take. And because you take more swings, you eventually hit more home runs. Confidence is the byproduct of surviving your own failures and realizing you are still standing, more informed and more capable than you were before. Lesson 4. Control your inner dialogue. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one happening inside your own head. This internal monologue is the soundtrack of your life, and it plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For many, this soundtrack is a relentless stream of self-criticism, doubt, and catastrophizing. We say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to a friend or even a stranger. We tell ourselves we're stupid, ugly, or incapable, and then we wonder why we feel anxious and uninspired. Your brain is a highly sophisticated biocomputer, and your thoughts are the code it runs. If you program it with "I can't," the output will always be failure and hesitation. To take control of your confidence, you must become the gatekeeper of your thoughts. This starts with awareness. Most of our negative self-talk is so habitual that we don't even notice it happening. It's like the hum of a refrigerator in the background. You must practice metacognition, thinking about what you're thinking. When you catch a thought like, "I'm going to mess this up," you must immediately intervene. Don't just let it slide. Challenge it. Ask for evidence. Is it objectively true that you will mess up? Or is that just a defense mechanism trying to keep you safe from the discomfort of trying? By questioning the critic, you begin to strip it of its authority. The goal isn't to replace negative thoughts with delusional, toxic positivity, but rather with functional realism and supportive coaching. A coach doesn't tell an athlete they're perfect. A coach says, "That was a tough play, but you've trained for this. Keep your head up, adjust your stance, and get back in there." This is how you should speak to yourself. Replace "I'm a failure" with "I'm currently learning a difficult skill." Replace "Everyone is judging me" with "Most people are too worried about themselves to notice me, and even if they do, their opinion doesn't define my worth." This shift from critic to coach changes your internal chemistry, reducing cortisol and increasing the resolve needed to act. It is also vital to understand that your inner dialogue doesn't just reflect your reality, it creates it. Through the reticular activating system, RS, in your brain, you are hardwired to look for evidence that supports your existing beliefs. If you tell yourself you are socially awkward, your brain will highlight every slight stumble in conversation and ignore every moment of genuine connection. If you tell yourself you are a confident communicator, your brain will look for signs of engagement and agreement. By consciously choosing an empowering inner dialogue, you are literally training your brain to see a world full of opportunities instead of a world full of threats. Changing your inner language is a long-term project, not a one-time fix. It requires constant vigilance and the willingness to forgive yourself when you slip back into old patterns. But the payoff is immense. When you stop tearing yourself down, you stop being your own biggest obstacle. You start to move with a sense of lightness and ease because you are no longer carrying the weight of your own judgment. Confidence isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about finally being on your own side. When your inner voice becomes your greatest cheerleader rather than your harshest critic, your external life will begin to mirror that newfound strength and stability. Lesson 5. Take action before you feel ready. The single biggest barrier to confidence is the feeling trap, the belief that we must first feel confident before we can take action. We tell ourselves, once I feel more confident, I'll start that business. Or, once I'm not nervous, I'll ask them out. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain works. Feelings are not the precursors to action. They are often the result of it. If you wait until the fear is gone to move, you will be waiting forever. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, and it will remain present until the unknown becomes known through experience. Therefore, the only way to get rid of the fear is to go through it. Courage is the bridge between hesitation and confidence. While confidence is the belief that you can do it, courage is the willingness to do it even if you're afraid you can't. Every time you take action while your voice is shaking or your palms are sweating, you are performing an act of courage. And here is the secret. Your brain watches you being courageous and eventually concludes, hey, we did that thing and we didn't die. Maybe we're better at this than I thought. This is how confidence is built. It is an after-the-fact realization. You don't think your way into a new way of acting. You act your way into a new way of thinking. Taking action creates momentum, and momentum is the fuel of self-belief. When you are standing still, your mind has time to invent 1,000 what-if scenarios, each one more terrifying than the last. But once you are in motion, your focus shifts from what might happen to what is happening right now. You move into a state of flow where your skills meet the challenge. Even a small step forward provides a sense of agency, the feeling that you are the driver of your life rather than a passenger. This sense of agency is the core of a confident spirit. The more you do, the more you realize you can. We also need to lower the stakes of our actions. We often paralyze ourselves because we view every action as a high-stakes performance that defines our entire future. In reality, most actions are just low-resolution prototypes. If you speak up in a meeting and it's not perfect, the world doesn't end. If you start a project and it fails, you've just gained a massive amount of training, referencing Section 3. When you lower the pressure to be ready or perfect, it becomes much easier to just start. Confidence comes from the volume of your experiences, not the perfection of them. Quantity leads to quality. In conclusion, the path to confidence is paved with the actions you take while you are still afraid. Do not wait for the stars to align or for your insecurities to vanish. They won't. They will only retreat once you've proven to yourself, through cold, hard action, that they were exaggerating the danger. Trust the process of doing. Trust that the clarity you seek is found in the movement, not the meditation. As you take those first trembling steps, you'll find that the ground is firmer than you thought. Before you know it, those steps turn into a stride, and that stride turns into a run. Victory isn't just the destination, It's the transformation that happens when you finally decide that your goals are more important than your comfort. Unshakable confidence isn't magic. It's earned through discipline, self-trust, action, and resilience. You don't need to change who you are. You need to commit to becoming who you're capable of being. Start today. One action, one promise, one decision. If this message resonated with you, stay committed to your growth, because when confidence becomes your foundation, winning in life becomes inevitable.